Hi 7th graders, it's Mrs. Trombley here with your Unit 2 review. Hopefully you have completed this study guide. Now it's time to check your work. Make sure that you have a ruler with you, pencil, calculator, and have some sticky notes or a sheet of paper, something that you can jot down any questions that maybe I didn't answer when I went through this. And then tomorrow when we get to class, have those questions ready for me before we take our test. So problems 1 and 2, I ask you to complete a table to plot the points. So this is just pure substitution. I want to know when x is -2, what y is. So you plug the -2 in for x, and you end up getting 2 plus 1, which is 3. When x is 0, you get 2 minus 0, which is 2. And when x is 2, 1/2 times 2 gives you the 1, and 2 minus 1 is 1. Now all you have to do is plot these ordered pairs. This is x, this is y, this is x, this is y, x, y. You do not have to write that. I'm just trying to show you what it means. It's an ordered pair. So I'll plot -2, 3. That means -2 on the x-axis and 3 on the y. 0 means 0 on the x, 2 on the y. There's my y-intercept, by the way. And then 2, 1 means right 2 of 1. Your points should lie on a line. If they don't, it means you may have done some substitution wrong. And there's the lovely graph. Right, for number 2, same thing. We just had to plug in the values for x and see what happens with y. So when x is -2, 3 times -2 is -6 plus 1 is -5. When x is 0, 3 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. And when x is 2, 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So again, my ordered pair would be -2, -5. So -2 on the x, 1, 2, 3, 4, -5 on the y. 0, 1, so over 0, up 1. And then 2, 7 means I'm going to go right 2 and then up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So your line should look a little something like that. Hopefully it does. Okay, for 3, 4, and 5, I give you a line, and I ask you to find the slope and write it in simplest form. So this is where you just have to remember rise over run. I know we just plotted points, which is kind of opposite of that, but for slope, we're actually going to go up, then over. So for number 3, if I'm going from this point to this point, I would have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And from here, I'd go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So initially, you get 4/6. That can be simplified. 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 6 3 times. So this line has this positive 2/3 slope. It should make sense that it's positive because the line is going up towards the right. For number 4, when you look at that line, it's a horizontal line. It has a 0 slope. So when you see every single horizontal line, you should know that it has a 0 slope. Also, you don't have to move up at all. That would make your numerator 0. And even if you went over 1, or you went over 2, or you went over 3, no matter what, 0 divided by a number is going to be 0. Okay, for number 5, doesn't matter which points you pick. I'll pick this one, why not? To get from here to here, I would go down 1, 2, 3, right 1. If you went up 3, left 1, then you'd have 3 over -1. Either way, when you divide one of each, it's negative. So 3 divided by 1 is 3, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So you should have a -3 for your slope for that one. Okay, now I ask you to find the slope containing each pair of points. So right now, we're just looking for slope. I don't need an equation yet. And here you have to remember that you take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y's on top again, rise over run. So I will take 10 minus -5 over 0 minus -3, or 10 plus 5 over 0 plus 3, same thing. And you get, when you take 10 plus 5, 15, and 0 plus 3 is 3, and 15/3 will simplify to a lovely whole number 5. So for number 6, you should have a slope of 5. For number 7, and again, I like to distinguish between what's what, so I know what goes with each other. So I circled my x's and underlined the y's, whatever floats your boat. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 6 minus 10, or 6 plus -10 is -4. -8 plus -4 is -12. First off, a negative over a negative, that means I'm dividing two of the same sign, so it's positive. And the GCF of those is 4. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 12 3 times. So you should have a slope of 1/3. Finally, for number 8, maybe you're already noticing, oh, the y's are the same value. So I'm going to have a 0 slope. If not, just do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You end up getting 0 over 4, and 0 divided by anything is 0. All right, page 1 is down. Page 2, let me make sure I'm in the camera. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. Here, I give you the equation, and I ask you for the slope and the y-intercept. When I give you the slope and the y-intercept, or I'm asking you for the slope and y-intercept, it'd be a lot easier if the equation was in y equals mx plus b. Because in y equals mx plus b, you're given the slope and the y-intercept. So with 9, 10, 11, make sure it's in y equals mx plus b form before you identify the m and the b. All right, so in y equals negative 2x minus 1, the slope is the coefficient of x, which is negative 2. And this one's already solved for y. The b, a lot of people want to say that it's 1. It's really not. This minus 1 really means that's a negative 1. So the b would be negative 1. And remember that y-intercepts look like that as an ordered pair. It's whatever y is when x is 0. Now you're supposed to graph this using those two pieces of information. So the y-intercept is 0, negative 1. That's where you start. And if the slope is negative 2, that means negative 2 over 1 because you need a rise and a run. So from your y-intercept, negative 1, you would go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. And you should have a decreasing line or a negative slope that looks like that. Okay, for number 10, I'm hoping that when you look at this equation, you see, oop, y is not alone. I need this negative 1/3 x to go away. So we're going to add a positive 1/3 x to each side. And your final equation for this one, I'll cram it in up here, is y equals 1/3 x. So it's a positive 1/3, which is your slope. Now there's not a plus b that we can see because you don't write plus 0 ever, especially if you're at the bank making a deposit. You just look silly. I'd like to deposit $0. No, but it's still there. So that would be my b. B is 0. In other words, my y-intercept is 0, 0. So we'll start there and plot 0, 0 on the graph. And from there, our slope is 1/3. So that means up 1, right 3 from the y-intercept. Up 1, right 3. Or down 1, left 3. Whatever you want. Same thing. Connect those dots. All right. The last one of these. Again, we look at the equation and uh-oh, it's not solved for y. I need to get rid of this 2 that's being added. So I'm going to subtract a 2 or add a negative 2. Whichever way you see it. So now I've got y alone, and y equals negative 3/4 x plus negative 2. The slope here, there's a negative sign in the middle. You can put it with a 3, you can put it with a 4. You can't put it with both. It means that one of them is. So I'll just put it with the top and say my slope is negative 3/4, and my b is negative 2, or 0, negative 2. Notice I did not put an x after that. The slope is the coefficient of x. Don't include the x when you list your slope for me, please. It's a little pet peeve of mine. Okay, so we're going to graph this. I know my y-intercept is 0, negative 2. My slope is negative 3/4. So if you chose to put the negative with a 3, then you went down 3 and right 4. If you chose to put the negative with a 4, then you went up 3, left 4. Either way, your points will lie on the same line because it really doesn't matter what you put it with. So that is that. Okay, 12 and 13, I ask you to find the x and y intercepts. So our lovely standard form makes this super easy. Standard form is the ax plus by equals c form. So basically, if you want to know the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for the y, or I was showing you in class, you kind of can just cover it up because it's going to cancel out. 2 times 0 is 0, and it goes away. And if you want to know the y-intercept, we'll cover up the x because we're plugging 0 in for x. So really what happens when the equation's in this form, to find the x-intercept, I'm going to take 2 times 0 is 0, so I end up with 3x equals 6. To find the y-intercept, I end up with 3 times 0 is 0. Minus negative 2y means negative 2y equals 6. So once you solve those two equations, you get your x-intercept and your y-intercept. So you can, on these lines, you can write for the x-intercept, you can just write a 2, and for the y-intercept, you can write just a negative 3. But I want to make sure that you understand that when we have an x-intercept, it's the value of x when y is 0. And when you have a y-intercept, it's the value of y when x is 0. So those would be the correct ordered pairs for this. So x-intercept 2, 0 means I'm going to put a dot at the 2, and y negative 3, I'll put my point at negative 3. Sorry, it would help if you could see that, huh? And those 2 points are good enough to make a line. When I ask you to graph with the intercepts, just 2 points is good. Okay, number 13, same thing. I want the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So to find the x-intercept, when I plug 0 in for y, I get 2x equals negative 2. And if I plug 0 in for x, I get negative y equals negative 2. I solve for x. I solve for y. I'm dividing that by a negative 1. Remember, when there's not a number in front of the y, there's really a 1 there. So for my x-intercept, I get negative 1, or negative 1, 0. And my y-intercept, I get 2, or 0, 2. We'll plot my x-intercept, plot our y-intercept. Draw your line. And we're good. Okay, keep plugging along. Here I ask you to write an equation in point-slope form of the line with the given slope that passes through the given point. You have to know what point-slope form is. And my hint to you is it's the one that gives you the point and the slope in it. So pretty much these names tell you who they are. Oops. So if I ask you for point-slope form, this is a form I'm looking for. To write an equation, I give you m and I give you x1 and y1. So all you're doing is saying, okay, y minus y1 is 5 equals the slope times x minus x1. So right here it would be x minus negative 3, and x minus negative 3 ends up being x plus 3. We're done. We're done with that because I asked you for point-slope form. It's really that easy. Wish I had my easy button down here, but I don't. I'm in my basement again. Yep, it's 4:30. I had 2 cups of coffee already. It's crazy. Okay, same thing here. Y minus, well, here's my y1. So it's going to be y minus negative 6. So again, this becomes y plus 6 equals the slope times x minus, and here's our x1. So that's the equation that you should have. Easy peasy. All right, flip to your next page. I'll flip to my next page. Let's get it so you can see. Okay, here we go. So now I ask you to write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through the given points. Slope-intercept form is the one that gives you the slope and the intercept. So I'm asking you for y equals mx plus b form, but when you look at these points, I don't give you the y-intercept. So you actually need to use the point-slope form to help you to solve this one into slope-intercept form. And here's what I mean. You have 2 ordered pairs. I don't see my b from these 2 ordered pairs, but you can find your slope from 2 ordered pairs, right? So let's do that. We're going to take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So negative 3 plus negative 7 is negative 10. 2 plus positive 3 is 5, and my slope is negative 2. So right now you have a slope, and we also are given a couple of points. That means that we can plug into point-slope form. So I usually just choose the first ordered pair. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So if you pick something different than I choose, you'll get the same answer. But I'm going to pick the first ordered pair. So I'm going to use my y minus y1 equals the slope times the quantity of x minus x1. So x minus negative 3 becomes x plus 3. So we've got that. All that's left to do is a little rearranging. So we'll distribute that negative 2, add our 7, and you should get y equals negative 2x plus 1. Voila. So if that was too fast, we've got a couple more that'll happen. And again, get your sticky notes, write down, oop, I need some help with this one. I'd be happy to clear up all your questions before we take our test. Same thing here. I'm going to find my slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 10, I guess I didn't need to keep change on that. 10 minus 8 is 2. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. So my slope is a negative 1/2. That's what it simplifies to. Okay, so I'll use the first point again. Let's plug into our lovely point slope form. So y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. Now we're just going to distribute the 1/2, or negative 1/2. And when you take negative 1/2 times a negative 2, yes, you get plus 1. We'll add our 8, and our final equation should be y equals negative 1/2 x plus 9. Voila. All right, last but not least, I thought you needed a couple of these ones. Hopefully I was right and you're not bored out of your mind right now. All right, so I'm going to take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I end up getting 2 plus 3 is 5, and then negative 2 plus 4 is 2. We can just leave our slope like that. That's totally fine. And let's plug in, I'll just use the first ordered pair because that's what I've been doing. So y minus y1, y minus negative 3 becomes y plus 3. My slope is 5/2. And then I want to take x minus negative 4, which means x plus 4. Okay, it's time to distribute. So y plus 3 equals 5/2 x plus, okay, 5 times 4 is 20. 2 times 1 is 2. 20 divided by 2. That's 10. I'm going to subtract 3 or add negative 3, same thing. And y equals 5/2 x plus 7. It's okay to leave your slope as an improper fraction like that because that's what we're going to use to graph anyway. So you want the rise over run. Okay, number 19, we're plugging along. I asked you to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Again, you have to know that's y equals mx plus b of the line that passes through 6, negative 4 and is parallel to y equals 5 minus 3x. So again, if I know that it's parallel, that means I'm going to know the slope. So I know the slope and a point. That means I'm going to use point slope form initially and then rearrange it. So in this equation, if I want something parallel to this equation, I'll add the opposite here so it's easier to see. That means I need my slope to be negative 3 because parallel lines have the same slope. And in the equation, or I'm sorry, in the problem, I tell you the ordered pair 6, negative 4. So step 1, let's plug all this in to our point slope form. So y minus y1 is negative 4, so y minus negative 4 means y plus 4. I want a slope of negative 3. I want to take x minus x1. Now I asked you for slope-intercept form, so we're going to do what we just did above. I have negative 3x, and ends up being plus 18 minus, up here becomes plus negative. And I'm going to add my negative 4, or subtract 4, and you get y equals negative 3x plus 14. Sorry. So y equals negative 3x plus 14 should be your final answer for that one. Okay, now I ask you to write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through 6, negative 4, but it's perpendicular to this line instead. So you have to remember that for perpendicular lines, the slopes are opposite reciprocals. So if my original slope is negative 3, first of all, my slope I'm going to use needs to be positive because the opposite of negative is positive. And the reciprocal of 3, which 3 over 1, is 1/3. So for this one, I'm going to do the same thing I did above, but I want to use 1/3 for my slope. You're still going to use 6, negative 4 for your ordered pair. So I'll plug it into the point slope form. So y minus negative 4, or y plus 4, equals my perpendicular slope times the quantity of x minus 6. And we're going to go ahead and distribute. So now I have 1/3 x, and it ends up being plus negative 2, or minus 2, whichever one you wrote is fine. I'll add a negative 4 to each side so that I can get y isolated. And y equals 1/3 x plus negative 6, or 1/3 x minus 6. Either one at this point in your math careers is fine. Okay, then the rest of the time is math story time. Yay! I know. It's fun, isn't it? So a cell phone plan costs $25 per month plus 5 cents for each minute used. And letter A, I ask you to write an equation in slope-intercept form that models the total cost y for each minute x. Well, when you look at this cell phone plan, I tell you that it costs $25 per month. That's like your startup charge, right? That startup fee is like your B. And I give you the rate of 5 cents for each minute used. So I already give you all the information to write this in y equals mx plus b form. So y will equal the 5 cents per minute x plus the $25 startup cost. Okay, letter B, I ask you, what would the total bill be if you use 350 minutes? Well, if you recall, the x represents the minutes, right? So if you use 350, all you have to do is say, okay, well, y is equal to 5 cents times 350 minutes plus the $25 startup fee. So type in your calculator, or do it the long way if you want. That would be great fun. So 0.05 times 350 plus 25, you should have a total of $42.50. Letter C, I ask you, how many minutes did you use if your total bill was $75? Well, if you recall, in our original equation, the y is the total bill. So now I'm going to plug 75 in for the y in my original equation. And now I want to solve for the minutes. So this is just like a regular old two-step equation. To start off, you should subtract 25 from each side. So 50 would equal 5/100 x. Then we're going to go ahead and divide by the coefficient of x. And that means that x is equal to 1,000. So if your bill was $75, it means you used 1,000 minutes. All right, turn your page. So close. You can taste it. We're almost done. I purchased bagels and donuts for breakfast. You know me, that's all I eat, right? Bagels and donuts. Bagels are $2 each, and donuts are $1.50 each. I spent $25. Letter A, I ask you to write an equation in standard form, and that's good, because in the problem, I give you two rates. I tell you $2 each for bagels and $1.50 each for the donuts. When you have two rates given, ax plus by equals c is the way to go, and that's the standard form. So what you should have written, I ask you to use x for the bagels. Bagels are $2 each, that's 2x. And y is for the donuts. Donuts are $1.50 each. And I tell you spent a total of $24. So it should look like that. If you wrote the little 0 after the 5, that's fine. It really doesn't affect anything at all. You don't need it, so I dropped it. Dropped it like it's a hot potato. Now I ask you to identify the x and y intercepts, which usually happens when you have something in standard form because the x and y intercepts are really easy to find. To find the x-intercept, plug in 0 for the y. So 2x plus 0 equals 24, or 2x equals 24. Divide by 2. My x-intercept is 12. To find the y-intercept, I'll plug in 0 for the x. So 2 times 0 is 0. I'm left with 1.5y equals 24. You should have divided each side by 1.5. Y equals 16. So our x and y intercepts, there we have it. Again, recall, this means 12, 0. This means 0, 16. It will be important to you tomorrow on the test, I promise. All right, how many bagels did I buy if I bought 4 donuts? So in your original equation, we have 2x plus 1.5y equals 24. And the x represents the number of bagels, and the y represents the number of donuts. So for letter C, I'm asking you how many bagels, and I'm telling you the number of donuts. So x should stay x, because that's what I want to know. And I'm going to take 1.5 times the 4 donuts equals 24. So this is actually a two-step equation. You just need to simplify that little part first. So 2x plus, when you take 1.5 times 4, that's 6. There's a nice little two-step that we know and love, the easy peasy ones. I'm going to subtract 6. 2x equals, well, 24 minus 6 is 18. Divide by our 2, and x is equal to 9. So if you bought four donuts, that means that you bought 9 bagels, because remember the total cost has to add up to $24. Okay, last one. A car's value depreciates, and it really is sad how quickly cars' values depreciate. You'll find out someday, but it depreciates at a rate of $2,500 per year. 3 years after it was purchased, the car's value was $21,000. I ask you to write an equation in slope-intercept form, that means y equals mx plus b, that represents the situation using y for the value of the car and x for the number of years that have passed. Okay, in this, I give you the rate. I tell you it depreciates at a rate of $2,500 per year. So that means my slope, and if you think about this graph, if the value is going down, that means my slope's going to be negative. So my slope is negative $2,500. I don't give you the b in the problem. I do tell you that 3 years after it was purchased, the value was worth $21,000. And I say here that x represents the number of years and y represents the total value. So what I gave you was an ordered pair, which is 3 and 21,000. So right there, we have a point and we have the slope. You can plug into your point slope form and then we can rearrange it. This is the toughest one, isn't it? So here we go. I'm going to say y minus y1 is 21,000 equals the slope times the quantity of x minus x1. Then I'm going to distribute. So I get negative 2,500x plus 7,500. I'm going to get rid of this 21,000 over here. So y is equal to negative 2,500x plus 28,500. There is your equation. Oop, it would help if you can see it. There you go. Okay, letter B, I ask you, what was the original cost of the car? Now, isn't the original cost of the car the starting point? It sure is. When you look at your equation, aren't you given the B? That means you've been given the starting point. So the original cost of the car is $28,500. We know that because that's the constant in the equation when it's in the form of y equals mx plus b. Now letter C, I ask you, hey, how much will that car be worth after 6 years? Because I think I'm going to hang on to it for 6 years and I'm going to sell it. So if you think back to your original equation, y represents the total cost, x represents the number of years. For letter C, I'm telling you the number of years, right? So we're going to solve for y when x equals 6. So this, I would just plug it into my calculator, to be honest with you. Take negative 2,500, multiply that by 6, add $28,500. So that means if you spent $28,500 on your car, after 6 years, you can sell it for $13,500. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.